Hey, Brian Sullivan, President and founder of Precise Selling from the international headquarters with your weekly sales and leadership tip. Now, this week when you were making sales calls, at any point did you face a sales objection? In other words, you thought things were going great, you're going through your presentation, you're getting the head nodding a little bit, and the customer says, I like what you're telling me, but here's my issue. Or even worse yet, maybe they said, I like what you're telling me, leave me some information and I'll get back to you. So what do you do when a prospect or a customer stops you? Now, think about how the average or below average sales rep answers an objection, and here's the big mistake they make. They think they know what the customer means by the objection, and so they just answer. And the problem is, because they don't really understand what the objection is, they often answer the wrong objection, thus bringing up a new objection. Or maybe they think they know what the objection is, and so they blurt out a whole bunch of stuff, and then they end up boring the customer, or perhaps even building bigger walls. So I'm going to give you 5 things that you have to do on every call when you get an objection. And this formula is called SHARP. I want you to be sharp. Now the S and the H of SHARP stands for anytime you get an objection, stop and hear them out. And what do I mean by this? I mean, don't start crafting the response to the objection in your brain while their lips are still moving. Because what's the risk of that? Well, if you think you already know the objection and you're developing the response, what aren't you doing? Well, of course, you're not listening. Now, in fact, the objections that they use, the words they use, often aren't the real objections. In fact, there's a meaning behind what they are saying, and the below average or average salesperson just buys into the words being used. They don't fully understand what the issue is. So how do you get to the true objection? You ask a question. That's part of SHARP. So we stopped, we heard them out, we will then ask them a question. And you might not only ask one question, you may ask 2, 3, or 4 questions. You'd be amazed if you can silence your brain and ask a few questions, how often what you thought was the objection, in fact, wasn't the real objection. Or number 2, it might be an objection, but it's not a big objection. So once you have a full understanding of what their issue is, you will then R of SHARP, you will respond. And how will you respond? Well, in reality, most of us know the top 5 objections we're going to get on our product line or our service or our solution. So you should know exactly what will come out of your mouth. In fact, an exercise I want you to do this week or maybe next Monday is sit in your office and write down your top 5 objections. And I want you to think, if someone used those on me, if someone objected, a prospect, what should I say that I can practice, drill, and rehearse? And this is what I love about sales. It's showtime, right? So if I already know my script, because I know these objections are coming and I practice, drill, and rehearse them, guess what my response will sound like? Perfection. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to overcome every objection, but I will tell you, it will be better than the average or below average rep who walks in the door, gets the same objection, and goes, I've never heard that. And then they may respond in 5 different ways, and 4 of them just aren't very good. Now, let's assume you just responded to the objection. I want you to then P, which is pack it with agreement. So after your response, you may say something like this. So based on what I just shared with you, what do you think? Does that put your mind at ease? And the customer may say, yeah, I think it does. You packed it with agreement. You have to get their head nodding. You have to get a yes from them. And then the E is you will then exit, get off the objection with something like this. Okay, great. I'm glad we put your mind at ease. Hey, by the way, when would we like to do the training session? Should it be next week or maybe the following week? You see, I want you to take it away from the objection and move the process forward. Now, the below average rep at this point says, okay, I just answered this objection. This is awesome. So do you have any other questions or concerns? And why are you doing that? You just answered an objection. You don't need to help them create another one. So that pack it with agreement and exit. Get off of it. Move this process forward. So this week, I want you to practice being sharp. Next Monday, get in your office, Respond to those 5 objections you're hearing all the time and practice, drill, and rehearse. Make your show better than the 3 folks who are going to come in and do a presentation behind you. Because while your solutions may be the same, the only difference is you and your performance, your knowledge, and skill. So be sharp and come on back next week for your next precise selling tip.